and my whole family was gone. Only Miriam and I were left holding hands and crying.
50 years ago, at a railroad siding at a killing field called Auschwitz, a German SS officer named Josef Mengele, Dr. Josef Mengele, stood on the platform and with a flick of his finger sent tens of thousands to the gas chambers.
His experiments shattered lives, his name struck fear into millions, and yet he vanished into thin air. Josef Mengele, the angel of death, didn't just escape Auschwitz, he escaped justice, hiding comfortably while his victims suffered lifetimes of pain. This chilling story of Mengele, who did unimaginable things to his prisoners, will leave you terrified. Imagine opening your eyes to a privileged family where future opportunities are all set for you, giving you a life many only dreamt of. Josef Mengele was born on March 16, 1911, in the small Bavarian town of Günzburg, Germany. He was the eldest of 3 sons and lived a remarkably luxurious life with extraordinary living standards. Mengele's father, Karl Mengele, was the owner of the agricultural machinery manufacturer, which was flourishing at the time. His mother, Walburga Hupfauer, had a big role in Mengele's early life. To cut it short, the Mengele family lived a life that most could only envy. From a young age, Mengele was pretty noticeable. It wasn't just his grades that made him superior to others. He was an extraordinary kid with a brilliant and curious mind. Science and scientists attracted him. Though he started his education by studying philosophy in 1930 at the University of Munich, he soon shifted toward medicine. By the end of 1939, Mengele finished his medical degree with an interest in related areas like genetics and anthropology. Soon it turned out that it wasn't just interest, but obsession. Mengele's mind was fostering the chilling idea of refining humanity using selective breeding, which was sitting well with the wild situation taking shape in Germany at the time, at the mercy of none other than the Nazi Party. His thirst for knowledge and for improving the human race brought him to the University of Frankfurt, where he completed his studies under a famous eugenics expert, Ottmar Freiherr von Verschuer. It was this supporting figure who helped Mengele grow racial purity. It didn't take long for Mengele to find his ideas to be perfectly aligned with the racial purity of the Nazi Party. Nazi Party, or National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP, began in 1920 with a small group of people who had strong views on nationalism and racism. In the beginning, Nazi Party was almost overlooked. But when Adolf Hitler showed up, everything turned around. Hitler showed his enthusiasm and encouragement through his powerful speeches, which clicked with the frustrated party members. Germany was in bad shape with the economic and political disorder at the time, especially after the Great Depression. German civilians were looking for solutions, and Nazi Party made promises of strength and revival. The year 1932 marked the success of the Nazi Party, making it the largest political party in Germany, with Hitler becoming Chancellor in 1933. While Hitler was leading the party, he wasn't all alone. Heinrich Himmler was the leader of the Schutzstaffel and had a big role in Nazi terror like the Holocaust. Other than Himmler, Joseph Goebbels, the Minister of Propaganda, took control of the media and helped feed the ideas of Nazis in the general public. Lastly, Hermann Göring was another top leader who initiated the secret police, the Gestapo, and the concentration camps. Many of the historical events also helped Nazi Party gain fame and rise to power. One of those was the Reichstag fire, which happened in the year 1933 at the German Parliament. This was the ideal moment for Nazis to get people to stand against other political parties. Unsurprisingly, the Nazis shifted the blame of fire on their rival political parties to earn more power and control over the country.
In German medieval Nuremberg, the marching, seething squash of Adolf Hitler's Nazi Congress comes to an end.
Nazi Party was all about themselves, holding extreme nationalism, racial purity, and hostility against Jews and other races. For them, Germans were the only valuable people, especially the Aryan race among all. Shockingly, they only had one horrendous plan in their mind, which was to create a state free from Jews, Romans, disabled people, and other races. On top of that, Nazi Party also turned down the idea of democracy and human rights, as they wanted to run their own laws and control everything as they liked. Besides, they desired to extend Germany's territory, letting their people have more land and resources, naming it Lebensraum, or living space.
Sein Sowjetzeichen soll vor sich hertragen und wir werden in unserem Zeichen wieder siegen!
Fueled by this cause, they set off on a mission to attack and dominate the neighboring countries. Poland was the first country invaded by Hitler, which brought about extreme consequences for the whole world. On September 1st, 1939, he made a brutal entry into Poland and sparked the fire of World War II. In a game-changing moment, just after 2 days, Britain and France declared war on Germany, who had promised to offer protection to Poland. Earlier, Hitler was successful in taking charge of Austria and Czechoslovakia with minimum effort. This drove him to go one step further and invade Poland. Anyone could tell that Nazis were willing to go the extra mile to take every nation under their control. So World War II let the Nazis apply their radical agenda with even more confidence. As the World War grew, Hitler and his army used horrific ways to dominate others, like the Holocaust, which ended up killing millions of Jews. This World War was fought between two different groups, the Axis powers and the Allies. The first group included countries like Germany, Italy, Japan, Romania, Hungary and Slovakia, which was set to seize control of large parts of the world. Germany, with the leader Hitler, was all set to dominate Europe using immense power and terror. Italy's Benito Mussolini sought to reshape the Roman Empire in the Mediterranean and Africa. Japan, on the other hand, under the leadership of Emperor Hirohito, was prepared to expand its country throughout East Asia and the Pacific with aggression. However, the Allies, including the UK, France, the Soviet Union, China and the United States, stood together to battle the Axis powers and resist their attempts to take over. As time went on, other countries such as Canada, India, Australia and Brazil shook hands with the Allies, taking a solid part in the war. This big group of allies was then standing their ground to tackle the Axis powers. During the Poland invasion, Hitler used the Blitzkrieg or lightning war method, in which they had fast-moving tanks, infantry and Luftwaffe or air force to cripple the Polish defenses. The Soviet Union, on the other hand, also made a sudden entry into Poland through the east on September 17th because of the secret Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact signed between the Nazis and the Soviet Union. After constant push and clash, they were able to conquer Poland in full. Germany dominated the west and the Soviet Union ended up on the east side. The Poland invasion marked the beginning of savageries against the harmless civilians, some of whom were taken prisoners by the Nazis. That was when the ill fates of prisoners unfolded in the form of inhumane experiments carried out in the concentration camps, especially at the mercy of Josef Mengele. Horrific experiments in concentration camps. Josef Mengele, who had shaken hands with the Nazis in 1937, soon became a full-blown member of Schutzstaffel. This big paramilitary organization ran under the leadership of Adolf Hitler, infamous for its brutality and terror. As he built his legacy throughout the party, Mengele soon found himself a part of Auschwitz, where he was free to turn his unsettling scientific curiosity into weapons of unimaginable suffering. Between 1942 and 1945, the Nazis, particularly Mengele, used prisoners for his horrific experiments. Men, women, and children were forcefully put through cruel procedures, even when they denied them. The worst part of these experiments was that there wasn't any use of anesthesia, which caused unthinkable pain and suffering. Some infamous experiments included the freezing test, in which the victims were exposed to extreme cold to study hypothermia. Another experiment was sterilization and fertility trials, in which the researchers wanted to come up with an easy way of mass sterilization to stop the reproduction of undesirable groups. Most of these prisoners were Jews, but Nazis also took in prisoners of other groups and races, or people who they thought were useless or undesirable. Those were none other than Roman people, disabled, political prisoners, and others. All of them hailed from countries like France, Hungary, the Soviet Union, Poland, and others. As Mengele made his way to Auschwitz-Birkenau, the biggest Nazi concentration camp, he got a disturbing name tag, the Angel of Death. Mengele was the leading physician at the Romani camp, where he graded the prisoners. He was there to send men, women, and children to either gas chambers to put an abrupt end to their lives or push them to forced labor.
We got them from the cattle car. People were selected to live or to die. People crying, pushing, shoving, dogs barking, trying to make some sense of that place. And I actually turned around in trying to figure out what is that place. Never seen a place like that before. And as I turned around, I realized that my father and my two older sisters were gone. Never saw them again. We were holding on to mother for dear life.
When it came to performing experiments, Mengele left a lasting stain on history with his infamous twin experiment. He was especially attracted to the twins, 10-year-old Eva Moses Kaur and Miriam, who he thought carried secrets about heredity. In addition to them, around 3,000 more children were kept at the facility for experiments.
I was born in 1934, one of a pair of twins. Miriam and I were the third and fourth children in the family. We lived in a very small village in Transylvania, Romania. A Nazi was running in the middle of that selection platform, yelling in German, "Twins, twins." He noticed us and demanded to know if we were twins. And my mother asked, "Is that good?" And the Nazi said yes. My mother said yes. At that moment, another Nazi came, pulled my mother to the right. We were pulled to the left. We were crying. She was crying.
The twins would be taken to the laboratory to be checked thoroughly. Mengele usually used one twin as a control and did every horrific act on the other, including blood transfusions, forced insemination, injections with diseases, amputations, and eventually murder. The ones who were killed would be cut up and studied. In other cases, Mengele even tried to apply his eerie idea of sewing the twins together, which often caused unbearable suffering to victims and eventually led to their deaths. To make matters worse, he even chose to experiment on disabled people just for the sake of his twisted curiosity. Mengele also tried his luck with genetic experiments. For such, he took in people with unusual bodily traits like people who had heterochromia, different colored eyes, or dwarfs. He would draw out blood and tissue or cut organs without using anesthesia, offering a painful experience. On the other hand, he would also try injecting different substances into prisoners' eyes just to see if the substance can change their eye color.
I was used in 2 types of experiments. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They would put me naked in a room with my twin sister and many other twins, up to 8 hours a day.
In the name of studying diseases and natural immune response, Mengele infected prisoners with tuberculosis, typhus, and other chronic diseases. He would then see them suffer without giving them any treatment, letting the disease settle within their bodies. Due to this, many victims ended up dead. This tragic world war came to an end after several Allied forces battled the Axis and undermined their power. Between the years 1942 and 1943, the military forces of the Soviet Union battled against the Nazis and ended up overpowering them. On June 6, 1944, many Allied groups invaded France and took hold of Western Europe. In May 1945, the Soviet forces successfully conquered Berlin, which pushed Adolf Hitler to suicide, resulting in the fall of the Nazi regime. Then came America's chilling reality, its horrendous attack on Japan. In August 1945, America dropped nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which eventually made Japan give in. This marked the end of World War II. This war claimed 75 to 80 million lives of both civilians and military personnel. Mengele's escape and new life. Soon after World War II, Josef carefully escaped Auschwitz and fled the scene, using the post-war chaos as a backup. Since the Allied forces were packing in, he tried to flee from Germany. He used fake names and kept a low profile to stay under wraps. His journey was quite difficult and brimmed with challenges, but his quick-wittedness and luck helped him stay ahead of justice. At one point, however, Mengele was arrested by the US soldiers, but he was soon let go as they couldn't identify him as a war criminal. He later moved to South America, where many ex-Nazis were taking shelter, and began living with Wolfgang Gerhardt in Argentina. There, he got along with the German refugee community and stayed under the radar while doing odd jobs. As he tried to stay out of sight, the Allied forces kept searching for him. The Israeli intelligence agency Mossad figured Mengele was in Buenos Aires in the 1960s, but chose not to capture him. They wanted to arrest Adolf Eichmann instead. After living a fearful and fake life, Mengele finally passed away in 1979 after he experienced a stroke while swimming on the coast of Brazil and drowned. He was later buried in Brazil under a fake identity and escaped justice even after his passing. Several years later, in 1985, Mengele's remains were recovered, which offered a sense of closure to many victims and their families. That was the legacy of a brutal physician, Josef Mengele, aka the Angel of Death. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Do you think Mossad did the right thing by not capturing Mengele even after he was tracked? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and do remember, stay safe out there.